Please stand, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I really like that. Thank you, Lou. The next is approval of minutes from the February 3rd, 2016 meeting. Is there a motion to approve? So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Kathy, seconded by Brian. Any changes, errors, or omissions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Excuse me, motion carries. Under number 4, I want to add, under new business, letter A, which will be consultant agreement for consulting services for Portland Complete Streets Master Plan. And it is in your packets, orchid colored. And with that, I have no other changes at this point. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended? So moved.
Second.
Made by Kathy, seconded by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Under communications, I believe we have a update from the Route 17 project. Eric?
Yeah, how you doing? My name's Eric Kissinger. Oh, sure.
Welcome, Eric.
First meeting, everybody.
Tell us where you got elected as chairman. You got elected as chairman of a very big, important committee, so.
I did. So I'm here.
Congratulations.
I'm here to speak on behalf of although the name hasn't been defined yet, the Route 17 Recreational Complex, Portland Town Park, which you guys obviously approved our committee. So I'm here to kind of give you guys an update. Just who we are. We're obviously just engaged citizens, really looking forward to a project that we think could benefit the town. We have several members on the committee. I'm not going to go through all the names, but people that are here present tonight are myself, Sean Dwyer, Ann Fisher, and Ralph Zampano. Did I get that? All right. We meet one Thursday of every month. For right now, until we decide whether or not we need more meetings or less, or however that kind of works. We're on Thursdays until we switch to Tuesdays in May. We'll be meeting at the Buck Foreman Community Room, 7 o'clock. Obviously, everybody is invited to come join that. Just to kind of explain our charge, responsibility, and goal. You guys approved us to be a committee to kind of research this project, strategically plan for outreach to the public, educating people on what this project is going to be, the benefits of it, questions that people may ask, but it's really our responsibility to kind of get that information out and educate them as best as possible so that we can hopefully plan for a referendum question on the national election. Our action plan. We handed this out to you guys, but as you can see, it's pretty, it's full. There's a lot of events and meetings, opportunities for us to go out and, reach out to the public. Everything from sports in town, soccer, Little League, also down to just regular community events. We have the summer concert series, but as you can see, it's kind of spread out spring, summer, and fall. Lots of events that we plan at being at, and lots of events where we find a really good opportunity to just educate everybody on what we want to do and, again, the benefits of this project to the town. With this being a referendum question or potential referendum question that's going to be on the national ballot, we want to make sure that everybody is well aware of, what they are hopefully agreeing to. We have outreach plans also for Senior Center, Exchange Club, obviously continued updates to your board. We've also tried to plan for some coffee hours with Bartlett Hill, Atrium, to kind of really reach that demographic of the town, which is obviously going to be important. We've also talked about different forms of communication. So obviously, things that could be handed out in the River East News Bulletin for people to, that kind of tangible piece of paper that they can read, but also, Facebook, the town's website, really keeping that message consistent through all those forums, would obviously be important for us. We've also been working on cost deferments to the town. Obviously, this would be a pretty significant project financially. So we want to make sure that we're also, looking for opportunities for grants, anything to get, to, again, cost deferment for the town. So right now, that is what we are currently working on, or at least a member of the team is currently working on. We also have a member of the team who's in realtor, so she's obviously looking at, financial benefits to the town, how it can impact a homeowner and the value of somebody's home. That'll obviously be important information that we could get out to the public. Just kind of going through a couple of other things. Our kind of big requests for the board is to hopefully find us a pretty realistic cost per household, if this goes to referendum. And this, our biggest question is going to be, how much is this going to cost for the town? How much is it going to cost for individual taxpayers? So our request is to have a potential number from you guys. We're hoping for the end of March. That way, when our kind of big communication charge starts, in the spring, we can kind of have that information for everyone. Because again, that's going to be, a big factor in this. So, also one of our requests were, there's obviously the property in question for this project is the triangle on Route 17, the Goodrich property. So we were hoping that someone from the board could reach out to that property owner, talk to him about that, possible acquisition of the land, however that acquisition is going to work. But those things are gonna help our committee really move forward and, just have that final information that we can kind of provide to people, and make sure that, again, everybody is educated on the project, and everybody feels like they have, the other thing too is we want that good information and that good spread of news to get back to you guys as well, so that you guys feel like this is a project that the entire town is invested in. So if we can get that information out, then hopefully that comes back to you guys and, it gets moved forward. Did I miss anything?
Anything you wanted to add? Other members? Thanks for coming in.
The only thing,
Ralph?
the only thing I would add is that, obviously we've done a lot of presentations and people are quite tired of hearing them talk about, but ultimately what we need is really critical for that cost, because that is the last piece. I've been able to delay people asking me that question long enough, so I know this next round through, people are really gonna want that.
Of course, it's gonna depend on what we're able to get as a rating from the rating houses, and also depends on the interest rates and what's happening at large, and it'll be a prediction. It certainly can't be an actual firm number, but it can be a prediction and or a range. It's something that I'll work with our finance director, Tom Robinson, on, and hopefully be able to get at least a range of an estimate so that people will understand the impact.
And I think that should be understandable for them to understand. We're just coming up with a number, because there's other things that are factors that are.
Very
I'd
good.
like to comment about
Yes.
the property acquisition for Goodrich.
Yep.
I live in the neighborhood, and it's a huge question for the neighborhood. What is that entrance gonna look like to the park? And I think as a committee, we really need to be clear on what this design is going to be, how it's gonna impact the neighborhood. So we really feel it's important for someone to kind of advocate whether it's gonna happen or not.
Sure. I know I've already had conversations with the owner of that property, and it's, again, up to this board as to how that will proceed, whether that becomes part of the bond question. In other words, the money associated with that could be rolled into the bond, and that can proceed in that fashion. Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
questions, board? Thank you for coming in. It's very important to get updates, and we appreciate it very much. Public comment? Any public comment tonight? Next item is set special town meeting for the Keegan property, 78 and 82 Middle Haddam Road. I did share with the selectmen the information on this acquisition. The appraisal that we had done came in a little less than what we had offered. And it also came with a letter from the appraiser stating that while the value may be X based on housing, 2 housing lots, certainly consideration has to be given as to how that land would be used by the town, which is a trailhead for, excuse me, the airline trail. And it also is anticipating that we will get the grant that the state has offered, the Trails Grant. And if we do, and we're keeping our fingers crossed, that won't be announced now, we understand, until March, but we will have to have a match for that. And the match is going to be, we anticipate, the purchase of this property. And this property would be primarily for open space, recreational, as well as a trailhead, and also certainly a nice contribution to the town in terms of land that would be open and available for future generations and not be locked up into other requirements or other personal use. Because the airline trails take us a long time to get that license, because it is in private hands. And now that we're able to open that up, we're certainly hopeful that we'll be able to acquire this property. But I'll open it up to the selectmen because they've reviewed the material and anticipate setting up a date for a town meeting, because it is required that the town voters at a town meeting, which is typically held in this room, would vote on the actual purchase. So we'll open it up to the selectmen. And we also have some members of Airline Trail here in case there's any comments or questions that may come up. Thank you.
I had a few things.
Start on this end. Okay, Ben.
I think, obviously, this is gonna be helpful for the trail, and I think overall it's a good idea. My only reservation is on that, the front 1 acre parcel. And I know when we acquired, if we acquired as open space, I understand the larger parcel, we're getting the open space, we're getting the parking, potential uses for the future. The front 1 acre lot, I do believe probably has a better use being sold as a residential lot. And when you're talking about these kind of numbers, it's a substantial amount of number. And a more important thing is we take a lot of money off the grand list every time we do acquire these properties. And we have to, as a town, think this through and try to make the best decision. Obviously, the 21 acre piece is a large, very nice piece. I happen to have a part owner of a piece of land that abuts this. It's beautiful out there. Having said that, the front parcel is a 1 acre approved building lot. And I would want my hands tied if we ever needed to sell that 1 acre lot. And I would want to make sure we wrote it accordingly, that the town would have the ability to then resell this and everybody was on the same page. And I'm not saying we need to, and maybe we do or don't, but we all need to keep in mind that, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, Susan might know offhand. I'm sure there's some revenue, probably a couple $1,000 a year on that front lot that we do as a town collect. We have
Well,
to-
on the whole parcel.
I would imagine they
The whole
both-
parcel is on taxes.
Correct, but I would imagine both pieces probably pay a couple $1,000 a piece in tax.
I don't have the numbers,
Right,
but-
maybe I don't wanna make up
Yep.
numbers, but, it's a lot of money over time. And we need to decide whether we wanna tie up that much equity in this one thing. I don't think we're gonna lose a lot by having the ability to sell that one lot, so if there was a way to word it and, the only other thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm not gonna pick it apart, but in the appraisal, I was surprised on the 21 acre piece, give or take the size. They didn't use any comparables in Portland. I actually just had a piece appraised recently, in the past, 3 or 4 months. And, my appraiser was able to find like sales in Portland, and that's what you should use. These were all out of town comparables. And I think had they used the in-town ones, the number would have actually been even lower. in the appraisal. But once again, I'm not gonna make the biggest issue out of it, but, and it also said they compared to listings, which you would never wanna do. Listings are irrelevant. When you base your, appraised value on something, it should be solely on sales, not on, listings. So I did not like that in the appraisal, so it was just those couple things that I didn't like. But other than that, overall, I like the plan, I like the big picture, so.
Well, in the resolution, 21.701 acres are adjacent to the airline trail. The parcel that you're referring to, Ben, is actually 1.02 acres. So it is a much smaller piece.
Right, and I think I know when we, as a town, purchase properties, and obviously I'm new to this board, and, everybody can educate me on how, I wouldn't wanna tie our hands if we ever needed, for example, that 60,000 capital to possibly purchase something that is more valuable. Yeah, we don't necessarily do,
Well, unless you're, well, you can look at the resolution for consideration. It's green, and, it says, I'll read it, whereas it's desirable to purchase land located at 78 Middle Haddam Road and 82 Middle Haddam Road, which is adjacent to the airline trail and will provide access to the trail. And whereas the land acquisition has been referred to the Town of Portland Planning and Zoning Commission pursuant to general statutes. And whereas the Town of Portland Planning and Zoning Commission voted on March 19, 2015, to recommend to the town's Board of Selectmen the acceptance of the parcel, finding it was consistent with the town's planning goals. And whereas Ty and Bond performed the environmental analysis, that should say, that's an error, take that T off, there's an error, a spelling error there, with satisfactory results. And whereas the funding will come from the Capital Non-Recurring Fund, Land Acquisition Fund, number 8, the Land Preservation Fund, number 58, and legal fees 01-014, and contingency 01095. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Chapter 5, Section 503C of the Town Charter, the Town of Portland hereby purchases a total of 22.721 acres, more or less, located off Middle Haddam Road, parentheses 21.701 acres at 78 Middle Haddam Road, and 1.02 acres at 82 Middle Haddam Road, which is the one Ben was referring to, from Central Connecticut Sand and Gravel LLC for $172,000. Now, this is the part that would tie it, and it could be considered to be eliminated, said parcels to be used for open space purposes.
I would wanna keep that on the large one, because if that is our ultimate goal, and once again, it has limited access, 25 feet.
Yeah.
I think the highest and best use, they got it right, is a single interior lot. We know what we're buying. The only other thing, and maybe I overlooked it, I did not see that there were test holes on record, so I'm not even sure they are technically, well, they're not building lots.
There is a phase 2 that was performed.
No, test holes for septic.
Per-
That-
per-
No, I don't
That would be
think
the
so.
only way to prove they're even buildable.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we don't even know that yet.
Right, so the appraisal, once again, and I deliberately didn't read who it was, so I can be objective up here. Should have stated they're appraising it as raw land, because if you don't have test holes, you can't appraise it as a building lot. But, just pointing it out here.
Open it up to the rest of the board?
I kind of agree with, a lot with Ben. Let the 1 acre piece, if we should sell it, or could sell it, or if we have to sell it, we shouldn't be locked in where we couldn't sell it on that one piece, because it's really 2 pieces of property that
Correct.
we've put into one purchase agreement. And it probably should be broken out so that the big piece is, I think, the right use with the open space and all the other stuff. But that 1 acre, if we ever have to sell it, maybe to improve, for some money to improve different parks or improve the airline trail, whatever, we could at least turn that one piece over to its highest and best use, which would be a residential property lot. And then you have to agree with Ben, is because there's no perk or depot, we don't even know if that lot, I mean, we might end up keeping it because we won't be able to build on it. We don't know those things yet. but if it does, maybe we should stop.
And
You
I wanna
could-
make, there may be test holes, I don't know.
I don't
Okay,
either.
Yeah. You could propose, Ben, after the $172,000, said parcel at 78 Middle Haddam Road
Bless you.
to be used for open space purposes, and not say anything about the other
Yeah, I like that.
82 Middle Haddam Road, because that may be also, but it may not be.
Yeah.
But if you want to say at this point that you want the bigger parcel to be for open space purposes, you can say that.
And I think Carl makes an excellent point. If we needed to put 60,000 in this property, we would then have the ability to sell that parcel and come up with the funds to put the gravel parking lot in, or whatever the ultimate goal is. Which,
Right.
I would just ask, what is the vision for the 1 acre? All right, any plans for that, anybody, does it?
Right now, parking,
Yeah.
so that can be access to the trails.
Yeah, what is the access width
That's something
Other-
you have to look at.
other than that 1 acre?
25, a hair over 25 feet.
What is the requirement, I guess, would
20,
be,
25 feet. Oh, requirement 24 for a 2-lane travel.
that would be my question, if you have enough guaranteed access.
And you have the ability to also, and I would recommend it if we were gonna sell, you have the ability to put an easement for an extra 5 or 10 feet or whatever. We would ultimately own the front lot, and we would protect the rear lot's interest if we were gonna sell it. But even without that side lot, it has the ability to access, but we can do whatever we want with both.
The other consideration, we're not making a decision tonight, obviously, but we're trying to leave some flexibility for the future years. As for selectmen, for several years now, we get a lot of comments from people's property owners, let me put it that way, property owners proximate to parks. And you have to give due consideration to good buffering, and recognize that if you're gonna have a public in and out, and you're right next to property, that has to be certainly given some cognizance. You have to be aware of that. And I don't think you wanna lock that up. It is a building lot. It is a potential. For all you know, you might wanna do something else there. But don't forget, if I'm not sitting here sometime, and Sean isn't in the room, I think Sean Dwyer can certainly relate to that. There's often conflicts, and it's often related to noise, light, traffic, and other use of land. So public land and private land, sometimes it's a beautiful marriage, and other times it gets a little rocky, just like life.
We'll throw it
So
to
what's
you.
the anticipated design in terms of parking and the necessity for this 1 acre? Is that nobody cares?
Yeah, I mean, the land was offered to the town, we considered it, and it worked out perfectly as land for, parking. But realistically, the parking wouldn't be by the road, realistically, the parking's gonna be in the back, down closer to the airline trail access. I think Selectman Serb had some good points there about, maybe there is some other value, however, I think, like Susan was saying, we have a lot of calls all the time about when you have a property that's next to a park or next to a public road, that people complain, and you would hate to see the town do all this work to get this parking, for the airline trail, and then sell a lot, and then we become the nuisance to that particular property. So that would be one of the reasons to hold on to it. However, like I said, there's ways to deal with that as well, so.
Why does any of this matter? I mean, if we pass this and it's designated as open space now, can't you just pass a resolution sometime down the road and
I
say,
think
well,
you can, Brian.
Well,
Right.
I'm not sure with the funding, if we get that end of it, I'm not sure. Other than that, yes, and that's why I wanted to be clear, I just wanted to put it all on the table.
It is some monies that we get once, properties are recorded. There's dollars that go into that, it's titled the, Land Preservation Fund. I don't know that that's terribly restricted. There are some restrictions, but it's not like the open space state grants. So with really any town land, unless there's something that's on the record, on the land record and deeded, that you would have to eliminate or deal with, or it's a grant, and you accept the grant based on only open space, I don't know, Brian, that you have your hands tied as the board. You can look to do that, you can deed certain portions of the land that you own as the town to be open space or to be conservation land. We typically don't do that. We typically like to have flexibility because you just don't know what the needs of the town might be in 20 years or 40 years or 100 years. So we typically don't tie up land. Sometimes when land is gifted to us, it may be gifted with a deed restriction. But in those cases, that's very different than when you own the property. It's like rights of way that the town owns along roads and other properties. We don't know in the future that you might want to build something, or you might want to expand the road or put more sidewalks in, or whatever it might be. So you could simply take out said parcels to be used for open space purposes and just end it at 172,000. You're not really locking anything other than the proposal to buy the land with town funds. I'll open that up for consideration.
I don't know that it makes any difference to me. I suppose if you wanna make it easier, you just delete that, those 8 words.
I kinda like leaving the back as open space in the front, and I'll tell you why, cause it gives everybody a chance to realize what we were all thinking at this point in time. In other words, if 1/3 of our overall expenditure can come back, if we choose to, it's good to know that. And to respond to you, Deanna, you were right. And one of the ways you could just put a deed restriction that whoever buys that parcel can never complain. They're the one property we can actually control. Everybody else around it, we may have other issues with, but that one I'm not worried
Free
about.
speech, free
Yeah,
speech.
that one I'm not, well, they also agree to what they buy, so, that one, it would be the one parcel we don't have to worry about. But, so, I think overall, my intent from the beginning, and I apologize if we carried on too long on this, was just to have everybody think about the ability to be able to sell that. Not even that we will, but if everybody can comprehend that from the beginning, that would be the reason you spell it out now, Brian. No other reason, you're right, we could change in the
I
future,
don't
but
know
it's
that it
hard.
matters, cause who cares what somebody's thinking today, it just doesn't matter.
Well,
You know?
It may, I disagree with that. I think it would change how people look at it in 20 years, especially if they were able to say, well, when they purchased it, they had the ability and they discussed it. I think it would be easier to swallow for everybody.
Would you care what somebody said 20 years ago?
I wouldn't unless I was the neighbor now. If I was the neighbor now, it would be very, very important for me to know what the original intent was. And I, that's the main reason I brought it up. No other reason.
It's not all that important to me, so however you wanna phrase that, it's fine, actually.
I like the way Susan had it the first time she read it, where she just,
I think when we say the 78 for the Highland
78
Road
should
is
be
the
open space. I think that was
only.
our intent.
Yeah.
I think that's what everybody works so hard
Like
to
what
get.
you-
That's in
And
there.
leave the other silent?
Yes.
Yeah, and Brian's probably right, it probably doesn't make a
It really
difference either
doesn't
way,
make
but at
any
least this
difference, but I
shows.
think Ben's right, it shows our intent on this whole deal and how we were going. And I like the way you said it. So just leave out that one acre piece.
I will tell you that, this goes as a resolution, you'll pass it, but it is approved by a town meeting. We do not purchase the land here tonight. We bring it to a town meeting, and, that's what we'll need to establish, so. if there-
Although, can I ask one
Yes,
other
go
thing? You mentioned something about this being a match earlier, right?
Yes,
So what is the match
Deanna knows
supposed
a
to
little
be?
more about that. Deanna, could you comment on that for
Sure,
us?
I didn't bring the grant application with me, though, I apologize.
And my concern only is if you're carving part of this out, I imagine that changes the match, so I don't know what the.
No, I don't think it, I don't
If
think
you're
that
not
would be
using it
an
for that
issue.
purpose,
It might.
I would think it would.
It
Yeah,
might,
you would,
yes.
I think you would lose it for that purpose,
Yes.
potentially for that. But if we knew how much the breakout portion of that part of the property was, which I think he did break out in the appraisal, if we know that, you know,
60.
if that portion was not gonna apply to the match. And I can't tell you off the top of my head what our match was, but we were definitely sufficient with just the purchase of this property was gonna cover our match for the grant.
So
So,
the grant is for the whole 172? My intent's not to mess that up.
you know what, I don't have that in front of me,
Close to,
Ben, I
give or
apologize.
take.
I think we might have said that's what, you know, we knew that we had a purchase agreement.
Isn't the grant for 690?
No, he's saying that our match
I'll take
portion.
it.
And what's, but the match,
So what's the
if you
percentage?
get it, and you don't get all that you ask for,
Yeah.
obviously, all the time. But if you were, is it a 20%?
Oh, you know what, I
remember
think,
the number
was it
20%?
20%? It might have been a 20% match, so that
So
was,
you're close.
Right, that's,
So that's
So
the only
140.
thing. Yeah, with something like
38
that.
So you're
You're
short.
close. So if you're only saying one part's gonna be the open space, you might, that's only
Yeah,
100.
and without having the information right in front of me, I apologize, I didn't think about bringing the grant application for that, so.
You can always go back.
I would keep it as open space the entire
If,
thing.
if it's gonna mess up the
It,
grant.
it potentially might, because I think we did use that number because we knew that that was gonna be the purchase price, so, and that we used that number.
if we- like-
Knowing that you can always come back and
Right.
do what you will with your land. But you will have to keep to that grant, that there's a match. And you're purchasing this land for the purpose of accessing the airline trail at the time. So the proposal has gone back to be as is. Yes.
Information.
But I think
Unless we
you
don't get
should.
the grant.
I think
Yeah. Is that the consensus? Is there a motion?
Susan,
Ryan? Yes.
before you do that.
Yes.
If the grant gets reduced, the match gets
Yes.
reduced.
Yes.
So, it's gonna be
Right.
equalized either way, so if we get the full thing, it's a great grant. If we get a little less than that, still a great grant, but our match goes down
Correct.
and maybe it'll work right out.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
gonna be close.
Question, Susan.
Yes, Mike.
On the 172, is that price already been negotiated, set, and is that good for
It's
a
in the
day, a
purchase
month, a
and
year?
sale agreement.
It's all set to go?
Yes.
All right.
We did, I will tell you that I do have a call through the town's attorney and the current owner's attorney saying, take a look, this was the appraisal that was done. We would ask that you consider that price as opposed to the one that we had negotiated. We heard back from the attorney and said that he would bring it to his client. He didn't anticipate change, but,
I'll take less, no problem.
didn't anticipate, but I wanted you to know that we have asked, so.
And how long is that, are we in our timeframes for fine?
Well, it's going to be once the town meeting is held. So if this, I'm anticipating that if we hold this March 3rd, which is our next regularly scheduled selectmen's meeting, I'll hear back by then.
No, I meant timeframe with whatever we've agreed with him. He couldn't back out after this.
We did have a time frame then that we would have the Phase 2 environmental study done before the end of last year, as I recall,
I think
which
you
we
did,
did,
yeah.
which we did. And so we said that the Phase 2 came back clean, and we were proceeding with the purchase and sale agreement because there was no need to go back and say, well, the land is not clean, and we'll need to renegotiate that. So that the deal was, and there's lots more to it, but if it comes back clean, this is the number. And it had actually been reduced from the asking price. And that, I will also add, was over a year ago. And the market changes, obviously. If any of you own real estate, probably everybody in the room does, it's been changing. And it's not been going necessarily north all the time.
Now, on the way we're gonna do it this.
All right, there was a motion made.
Okay,
Is there a second?
second.
Seconded by Carl. Okay,
Discussion.
discussion?
Susan, I didn't catch who made the motion.
Brian,
Brian.
as is.
And who seconded?
I did, yeah.
Discussion?
Now, all I'd like to do is make sure that we could do a resolution at some other time if we find that this piece of property is, we could sell it, possibly for, like I said before, for the improvements of some of the parks and so forth, if it doesn't work out. I just don't want to be locked out where that one little chunk piece cannot be sold, if need be. Not saying we have to.
I think that's what we're all.
As far as I know, it isn't.
Okay, as long as you think.
The
it's a
only
good
restrictions are that you do use the money for land. Open space is one of the uses of the land, but it's not the only use. But it's through this, it's not a grant. It's money that people pay to record their deeds, and a portion of that gets assigned to land acquisition. So you are using money that some of you have already paid into to then go and purchase land, which is the intent, I think, of that have those monies. But there are a number of different ways that it can be used. Open space isn't the only one. It's typically, and I would say the majority of this land at least is in that case. And when you go to consider changing the use of land, you know, you bring it to a meeting like this, and then you have to go to a town meeting, and it has to be thoroughly vetted, whether or not you know the answer tonight or you don't. It still has to go through that process, provided we're successful in acquiring it, just like it would for any land that the town owns.
Yeah, because charter
Right.
committee, yeah, if we sell it over that price,
Right.
it kicks in, so
And
even
it's-
if we have to sell it, we still
It's
have
the
to do it no
town's
matter, no
land,
matter
so
what, because it's per
unless
sale.
we don't any longer have town meeting form of government, but provided we do have town meeting form of government, that's how you make those decisions, is by the people that pay the bills. So, is a motion been made and seconded? All in favor of the resolution as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now I need a motion to establish the town meeting date, time, and place.
I make a motion, we have the town meeting on March 3rd at 7 o'clock in the Mary Flood Room.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Ben. Any discussion? Okay, I encourage all eligible voters to come to that meeting on the 3rd at 7 o'clock here in the Mary Flood Room. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Did somebody second that?
Yes.
Okay,
Ben.
I didn't hear Ben, that's, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
So, any questions, Sharon? All right, thank you very much, and thank you, Airline Trail Chairman and committee members, for being here tonight. It's very helpful. Yes. Oh,
sorry,
I'm sorry, the
I'm
second.
sorry.
Correction, that's
I was
my
going by
mistake,
your-
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, it's the second,
Second.
Sharon.
Wednesday.
It's our regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you, thank you. At 7 o'clock. Okay, the next is endorsement of the Plan of Conservation and Development, and I asked Deanna to come tonight to do a brief update on the plan. Deanna? And you have a proposed resolution in front of you. Resolve, the Board of Selectmen hereby endorses the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development, along with the consideration of all comments made by the Selectmen at the February 3, 2016 Board of Selectmen meeting.
I do have your
Deanna?
comments from that meeting, and I've looked at them, and I will be speaking with them about the commission tomorrow night to discuss them with them. I did speak with Fred Nouse. We actually sat down and went over his comments, and a few of the things were misunderstandings that he didn't understand in there, so he did say, no, don't change that. So there's a few things in the comments that I've addressed with him that don't need to be changed, and there's a few other ones that we added onto it based on our conversation. Selectman Chudzik also had a comment that he had given to me at another meeting, and I've also incorporated that for the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider. And if you want me to tell you what that was for your records, I can too. Just take me a second. That was on page 78, and it was about the maintaining and enhancing the water system. And it's in the second paragraph, and it's the last sentence, but I'll read that paragraph because it's only 2 sentences. Since that time, there have been some concerns expressed about the cost of water being provided, and this is speaking about MDC. Further, this discussion has, and what it says right now, has resulted in calls for Portland to become independent from MDC. And what I've been asked to consider to bring to the commission is to change that sentence to further this discussion has resulted in calls to consider alternatives to the current contract with MDC. And that's what Carl has asked, and I will bring that to the commission as well. So, you know, you've looked at the plan, you've already given the plan. One of the most important elements of the plan is really the implementation of the plan, and it's the involvement of the selection of an implementation committee, and which is different than what it was done 10 years ago. Previously, the Plan of Conservation and Development, because it's a planning document, has always been the Planning and Zoning Commission is the leader, and they try to get all these boards and commissions to meet quarterly, and then they come at the beginning and phase out, as time goes on. You can't get anybody to come, and it's hard to say, you know, what are you doing on your section of the plan? How are you implementing that portion? So this plan is different. It actually involves the selectmen in creating, like we've done in multiple instances, an implementation committee made up of citizens, board and commission members, members of the selectmen, members of planning and zoning, to make sure that all the different elements are being followed through on in the 10 years. And so I think it's really important, that implementation committee, to move forward to really see the plan in action. And obviously, because we did it in, the commission did it in two sections. So we have the strategic element and the implementation element. The nice thing is that since it's separate documents, the implementation element doesn't need a public hearing to change if the committee decides that, hey, there's another step we want to do, or there's a new state agency that's created that you need to contact. All those things can be added and changed to that implementation element. It's a living document, and it's great, and the committee can really work with that. The strategic is the guiding principles, and the action steps are in here as well. So is there any other questions about the plan? I mean, it talks about the future in the next 10 years, and also further than that, but really what we're looking at in the next 10 years.
Just to speak to Carl's comment, why would this plan get into that level in terms of a recommendation about MDC? It just seems sort of odd to me.
Well, a lot of people came, you know, we had these different community meetings, and that has been a topic of discussion about water and how we're going to maintain, and, you know, if we get off of MDC, and the selectmen spoke about it themselves, you know, renewing the contract, not renegotiating how much we're paying. So these are issues that are important to the community. So the plan addresses that. They say, you know, revisit this. And it may be just staying with MDC, it may be doing something else, finding other alternative water sources, but really that's, it's just a kind of a case study. What they do is he puts a little blurb into the plan about it, but really it's looking like the action steps and policies on this actually are, the policies are maintain and enhance the current water infrastructure in the community and improve water service in the, it's gonna be town center, it says village center in here. And then the action items talk about revising the subdivision regulations, about requiring underwater storage tanks, for dry hydrants, investigating the cost and benefit of different water supply approaches. It's very general. Adjust water usage rates to provide revenues that meet expenditures, and provide staffing resources to maintain water infrastructure. And some of this came from Public Works comments as well, obviously.
So Deanna, when you were talking about Carl's comment, you
Yep.
said something earlier, was that general comment or something more?
His was in
specific?
here in the case study, and, do you want me to read it? It's very short.
What does it say?
It says, Portland has an agreement to pursue water from the Metropolitan District Commission, a provider of water in the Hartford area, in order to supplement local sources. This arrangement was originally entered into by the town to avoid the cost of building a filtration plant and to provide a secure water source. Since that time, there have been some concerns expressed about the cost of water being provided. Further, this discussion has resulted in, this is the part that would be changed, for Portland to become independent from the MDC. Since the MDC agreement is due for renewal, the town should investigate ways that it might become independent in terms of the water supply and what costs might be. Once the investigation is done, the town can balance the overall advantages and disadvantages of different approaches and make a decision for the future. So in that sense, it's saying, this is the issue, and you need to think about how you want to move
Sure,
forward.
that
It
makes
does,
more sense to me than
Yes.
Carl's comments, but fair enough. Okay,
yeah,
Thank you.
so that's that.
So, we disagree again.
I disagree with him.
Fair enough, thanks.
Okay.
I read the resolution. Is there an interest to move the resolution and second it?
So moved.
So
Second.
moved by Kathy, seconded by Brian. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
You're abstaining?
Yeah, I wasn't at that meeting,
Oh, I'm sorry.
right?
You don't
You can
have
still
to.
vote on it.
I'm gonna, because I wasn't there, I don't know what was said.
Okay, okay. One abstention. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next, appointments to boards and commissions. Are there any appointments tonight?
I have a couple.
Kathy does.
Kelly Young, K-E-L-L-E, an alternate to Park and Rec.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And Gregory Piazza, Piazzazza, to Economic Development Commission.
Second.
Also seconded by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
That's it.
Thank you. The next is new business. Consultant agreement for consulting services for Portland Complete Streets Master Plan. And Kathy Heron is here in case there are any questions. She sat on the review committee along with Deanna. And I did send the proposed contract with Kent Frost, which is the name of the company that's done many of these in the area. And there were minor changes that our attorney suggested that are really more, I think, clarifications of some of the matters. And I bring it to you for approval for me to sign, and then we can proceed with this contract.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Someone like that?
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Is there somebody from this company here tonight?
No.
Okay. I'm looking at, where was I? On page 6, task number 2. Maybe I'm jumping ahead a little
Kathy, I
bit.
think I gave your copy to you, and Deanna, I have an extra copy if you want to look at this.
Thank you.
It's in the back, Kathy, of the packet. And, Elwin, were you on the committee too? No. So Kathy, you and Deanna are the only ones in the room that were on.
Correct.
Question?
Yeah, there was something about on the exhibit, what they were gonna do in scope of work. Existing conditions, inventory, analysis, and so forth. So I was looking at task 2, and I was wondering where they go, where they were going to, exiting hard infrastructure roadway and utility corridor sidewalks and other gaps. If they were gonna, if they were gonna be looking at our sidewalks as part of this complete streets
Yeah.
thing, where, are they gonna be going
Yes.
right down to, because I'm on I'm on sidewalk committee, and Fred is too, but he's not here tonight. But I'm sure he'd be asking the same thing. So I wanna know, when you go to do this study, will you be looking at like high spots, bad cracks, how it should be, you know, the things that we've been trying to look at? Will that be encompassed in this study?
Yes, our group has already done some research on the sidewalks, particularly in the downtown area near the schools, that would be repair, major or minor. So that would definitely be part of a plan with a recommendation to do the fix and whatever.
Yes.
Yes.
And it'll be detailed, like, in this section, that's bad, this is good. You know, like there's, you know, Susan, how we walked on different spots, there's deflections, some large deflections in the sidewalks and so forth. So they will actually be pinpointing some of these bad spots and also recommending how to fix it. Will they be doing that too?
I don't know about the recommendation on how to fix it, but certainly.
I think that's part of the scope too.
Stretches of streets, you know, near the schools, downtown, Main Street will identify, let's say, stretches of roads, I don't know if we'll get into how it would be repaired, that would be whoever we hire to repair it, the experts.
No, I think you're right, I think that, but they'll be looking at the areas, I think, that, you said, near the schools, and in areas of downtown areas, where the complete streets have kind of focused on, and he's definitely gonna evaluate and tell us where those areas are, and, you know, and it's going to have details in the plan, specifically how we can, have more safe pedestrian and bicycle access. I don't know if they'll get into, like, here's the detail of how to fix your sidewalk, you know, I don't think it's gonna be that.
Well, on task 2 on the scope of work, it says that the team will assess all existing relevant conditions through review of pre-existing data. So they're gonna be looking at it, and I was wondering if they're gonna inventory of relevant features, including, and that's where it would say in the next line, sidewalks. And just wanted to see what they were gonna do with that. And also, are they gonna do anything on with the sidewalks? Tree invasion of the sidewalk, you know, where trees breaking up the sidewalk, are they gonna go to that kind of a thing again since sidewalks? And that's the only reason, is because I'm on the sidewalk.
I'm not sure about the trees, Carl.
You know what I'm saying, where the trees are lifting up the.
Sure, sure, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'll keep that in mind as we're discussing the specifics of what you're
Yeah,
saying.
thank you.
Good.
On a side question, how does it work on the sidewalk? Say that we do identify major concerns that have to be addressed. Who pays this?
That's been up for discussion for a while.
Well, I guess then my next question would be, and Brian's in the room, so he's probably gonna back me up by this. Once this study's done, and we have something in writing, stating certain things, this may be bigger than we're ready for. But Brian, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think it's important to identify significant concerns and make sure you can prevent injuries, and I think that's more important than worrying about the liability aspect of it. But that's what you're alluding to.
No, I'm basically, well, I wanna make sure we have a plan in place that, how it's gonna get repaired, and number one, and is it on the property owners? Obviously,
Exactly.
the town owns the sidewalk.
Who's gonna pick up the cost of the repair of the sidewalk?
Well, that's simple too, because I think it's the town's responsibility, it's not
You always
individual
did
property
that.
owners, and that's the law.
Do you think-
And, I mean, it is, so.
Hang on, Brian,
I know
just-
that everybody wants to make
just-
adjacent
I didn't hear that.
property. It's the town's responsibility.
Okay.
And I believe that is the law.
Okay.
And I know that we've had conversations about this before, where people believe that the adjacent landowner should pay for any repairs, but that's just not the law. And I don't think we have the authority or the right to force someone to do such things.
And
I know we don't, so.
No, I'm fine with, I'm a big picture guy.
Yeah.
I wanna know,
It would ultimately be the town's responsibility, so if you're gonna do it, it's through taxpayer money.
I know where we can find 60 grand if we need it.
But I don't know if that's law, is it? Actually,
Well,
Brian,
no,
I think it was,
Hold it, 1 minute.
yes.
I appreciate the comments and the questions, but I don't want to further it because what we have is a motion on the floor to accept this contract. Some of those details definitely will be discussed, and I think, to your point, Carl, having the study done is really the first step in identification of these problems.
Yeah,
We've been
that's why I was
talking about
asking the
this for a
question.
long time. Now we're actually going to have a professional firm that's familiar with assessing the damaged sidewalks, as Brian and Ben and you have pointed out. And then we can look to do something about it. And if you look at the laws, and if you listen to some of the comments that came back from our attorney, there certainly is a need to assess the problem, and then we proceed to fix it. We can't do it like on a dime, but we've gotta start, and I think this is a very good way, and I thank the committee and our town planning department, for going forward with this, and this is also something, I think, Deanna, that's in the plan of conservation and development. And as a bonus to the selectmen, I have no papers for them. There's a policy that the state of Connecticut has in terms of complete streets. And I did make a copy, at least of their policy, that I'm gonna share with the selectmen, so they're aware this is not just Portland, but this is an effort that the whole state of Connecticut is moving toward. And I think that it's very important for us to proceed because it's proven.
What's the overall cost gonna be? Is it the 8,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
8,000 is what was determined in the last budget, and that's what this would be. And it's also helpful when you do try to fund the problem. If you know what you're going to be doing and you have a template, it allows you to then fund it properly, either through grants or through taxpayer dollars, which ultimately is who pays for everything, right?
Susan,
Yes, Michael.
does our wonderful Public Works Department, have they done sidewalks before?
They've done some. Frankly, the quality of our equipment and our work is not the same as companies that do this.
That specialize
all the
in
time,
it.
specialize in it.
Right.
We're able to do repair work, and we're able to do some of the needed handicapped accessibility sometimes if the curb needs to be adjusted. But in terms of equipment, we don't necessarily have everything that the expertise. It's quite a job to make sure that concrete is
Probably
fashioned
even-
properly. I think Kathy
Absolutely.
knows that
Probably
very
even
well.
cheaper.
So, absolutely, they know what they're doing.
Probably even cheaper than having our people.
Could
do
be.
something
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely.
Can be more effective. Good
Yeah.
question.
Andy
They
would,
last.
Andy would get some sort of warranty, and we'd have some
Yes.
sort of,
Sure.
so, there's other advantages.
Are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So I will sign the contract tomorrow and we can proceed. There were some minor changes, as I said, that Carrie gave us, and we'll incorporate those. Thank you. And thank you, committee, for coming tonight. The next item is the Middletown Dispatch Agreement. As we know, our dispatching services for police, fire, and public works as needed is through the city of Middletown. This contract is very similar to the one that we had currently. It is a 3% each year over the next 5 years, which is what we had previously. It's also, we took out the monitoring of our alarms. That is done by a private company now. The equipment that was needed to be upgraded proved to be more costly than actually hiring a company to monitor. Many private buildings now use third-party monitors, and then when there is a problem, they contact dispatch. So that is not included here. The city of Middletown has agreed with this as well, so I bring it to you for your consideration and approval for me to sign.
Do we have a discussion on this?
Yes, of course.
I read it over, and I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One is on number 2, the prisoner housing.
Number 2, yes.
It doesn't really say how much we have to pay for housing these prisoners. Is it a per diem cost, or is it by, because they said it's above what? Do you know what that is?
Honestly, depending on our use, which is not great use,
No, I know that. I was
hasn't
just
been.
wondering.
I think sometimes Middletown doesn't always proceed with that section. Depends on the extent of the use, but it would also depend on the year and the cost of housing prisoners overnight or for a holding
Well,
situation.
say, God forbid, if we had something like the fellow who threw the baby off the bridge, where you get him arrested, Portland arrests him. We have to house them in Middletown for 2, 3, 5 weeks, a month, I don't know. Or does the
Typically,
state
you
take them
wouldn't-
over at that
yeah.
time? So they go to jail?
Typically, this would be if someone has to be held
I
overnight.
know that, but I was
And we
wondering.
don't have the proper monitoring and
No, I
the
understand.
personnel, so that's why that's in there.
And
It
I
hasn't
just-
proven, I can tell you this contract's been around for many years, and that has not proven to be
A problem.
difficult. But if there were some, hopefully never happens, but if we did have frequent use of that facility, then they would need to charge us for it.
Yeah, I just wondered how that went.
In
And-
all my years, I don't think I've seen anything of material.
And the other one was C, was in-kind agreement.
Yes?
We're putting up does Middletown use our poll for Middletown's dispatch, their own dispatch?
Say that again, please?
It's our poll here in Portland, right, that they're gonna be putting in? All
Yes.
right. We're
It's not a
doing it in-
pole, it's a tower.
Tower.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Does Middletown have their own separate system up
Yes.
there that just does Middletown?
Yes, we don't, this is for our purposes.
I know, but
And
they're,
it could be for them as well.
okay, so what are we
Um,
getting in kind back from it, from Middletown? If they're using our poll, are we getting anything back for it besides, you know,
You
any
mean
consideration back?
Consideration?
Yeah.
Money?
Well, maybe not money or something in kind, you know, I see
I
it
think
only
it's
one
part,
way.
the way it's always been is if we're able to assist with the radio communications and make sure that it's properly, equipped, we do it. And if Middletown has to do additional work for the good of the order, they do. So that's that intent.
And that was just quick on that. And the last one, and I'm not sure, is the insurances. Brian, I started talking about it earlier before, and I didn't get to really understand it. But it's like Middletown is always asking that we indemnify them, so forth. And I thought that's what I was asking Brian, a lot of clauses, when they have that, is we indemnify them and they indemnify us. So what I'm saying is, if we have somebody, one of our men, at Middletown, it's something, you know what I'm saying? It sounds like we're carrying all the shirts. Brian, why don't you help me here a little bit?
We always
I think
do
it's
this.
fine as it is. I mean, they're providing a service to us. I don't know why it would be the other way around. We're gonna indemnify them. I don't know
Yes.
why they would indemnify us.
What
I
if
can't think of a
somebody on
situation.
the Middletown side hurt somebody on our
There's
side?
Well, I'm gonna talk about the indemnification page in a second, but if a Middletown officer hurts someone, generally speaking, then they're gonna be responsible for it. I don't know why the town of Portland would be involved in that.
Okay.
But I don't think it matters.
That's what I was asking you here.
Yeah, no, the insurance seems fine.
And one other quick question, Brian, for you. On number 2, specific requirements, are those numbers adequate for workman's comp and so forth?
If we ask Brian any more legal questions, he may send us a bill.
What did he say? I'm sorry, Brian, what did you say?
Well, we already have insurance, I assume anyways, right? So
Yeah, I just
So
wondered if
these
those are high enough, those are
these
proper
typical
numbers.
numbers, Brian.
Just a question.
To tie together to what you're talking about, so if you go back to section E,
Yep.
indemnification against losses, damages, liabilities.
Yep.
They seem to be saying two things, and I don't know what the city performance of services, what they're talking about there. I don't know what that means. So they're saying that the town of Portland agrees to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless the city of Middletown, all its agents, et cetera, against any and all liability. And then it says attributable to claims arising from the city performance of services pursuant to this agreement. And then it goes on to say, so I don't quite know what they mean there, but then it goes on to say, against all claims or actions based upon or arising out of damage or injury, including death, to persons or property caused by or sustained in connection with any act, it says of, I assume it means, or commission of the town of Portland, its officials, officers, servants, agents, employees, in the performance or lack of performance of services required under this contract. So, I understand the second part, and why we would be indemnifying the city of Middletown if they were sued for actions of our employees. But I don't know what this city performance of services means. It's strange to me that they're drawing a distinction between the two, and I don't know what that means. So it sounds like we're on the hook for something, but I don't know what they're referring to.
Doesn't that mean doing what we're contractually?
Sure, but then that sort of overlaps with what they're saying. So if a Middletown police officer harmed someone and they got sued, they're sort of breaking it out and saying that, but at the same time, they're talking about something different for the city performance. So it seems a little odd to me. And then this might just be a technicality, but on the other side, they're making a distinction between the employees, so that Middletown is responsible for Middletown employees, Portland is responsible for Portland employees, but in this indemnification language, they're talking about how the city of Portland, the town of Portland, is going to indemnify Middletown for actions of its officials, officers, servants, which is fine, but agents, that then technically includes employees of the city of Middletown, because they're acting as our agent in this capacity. So I don't think you want to have that language, because it's putting the town of Portland on the hook for that. And I would guarantee you that the city of Middletown would agree, but that's not the intent. But I would want to remove agents from that.
Well, I know that their city attorney looks at this, and it's been looked at several times. We'll look at it again.
I would say that their city attorney would agree to this. But I would also say that I don't think that's really their intent. I don't think they're trying to make us responsible for actions of Middletown employees. But, and they go on in the next paragraph really to say that, but they talk about it in terms of employees and not agents.
Yep. I'll
And a
have
Middletown
Carrie look
officer
at it.
acting on our behalf is going to be an agent of
Okay.
ours, so that's the problem. And I imagine that it would be a quick fix and they would agree with that.
Okay, I'll have Carrie and their city attorney.
Yeah, please just have it cleaned up or whatever.
Sure.
And I just wanted, that's when I was reading, I'm trying to think back, you know, looked like it was really one-sided to me. Thank you, Brian.
So that's, the basis would be section E.
Ian, it's really just, I just don't know what you're talking about by city performance, and two, the word agents. I think that puts the town of Portland on the hook for exactly what they're talking about, but if a Middletown officer did something wrong.
The word agents and city performance of services, right?
Right.
I'll get back to you on that, but everything else seems to be
Yeah.
in order.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, one other quick question. Because they're gonna do our services, somebody from Portland calls and, you know, their dispatcher over there picks up. Do they answer it Portland Police?
No.
It'll be just as a general,
911, what's the problem? What's your address?
okay, I was just wondering how they answer that. If we had separate, okay, no big deal.
No, they don't treat us any differently.
Okay. I didn't know if it came in on like a Portland line.
No,
You know what I
no,
mean?
it's 911.
Yep.
Or 860-347-2541
Yeah.
for dispatch services.
Okay,
And that, remember we had Wayne come and talk to us a
Yeah.
few weeks ago? To
Okay.
talk a little bit and remind everybody, because it is a sharing of their dispatch services. So,
that was just general information, my own question.
yeah.
Thank you.
Have you ever called and had them answer?
Fortunately not.
Frank called them.
Yeah.
No, no, you get in trouble for that. Okay. So I'll put that on a future agenda after we get that cleaned up. The next is, this is something that our attorney that deals with the deferred compensation plan with Security Benefit Corporation, which is, only a few of our employees still utilize this particular defined compensation plan. It's voluntary, and it was stopped at a certain point, and we've gone with another company, but some of our employees still retain some of their dollars in that particular corporation. So to be in compliance with applicable laws and the IRS regulations, we've been asked to review the resolution. Resolved that the town of Portland hereby approves and adopts the amendment and restatement of the town of Portland's existing 457B plan and trust with Security Benefit Corporation known as the plan. Such amendment and restatement to be effective January 1, 2016, which plan was frozen by the town in 2009 as to new participants and as to receiving additional contributions from the participants in the plan in the draft form presented at this meeting with minor further revisions and so forth. So in other words, it's things that we need to have with applicable law and IRS regulations.
Move adoption, waive the rest of the reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Believe, was it Carl?
What's that?
You seconded Carl, correct?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Or did you?
I thought it was good.
I thought it was mine too.
I'm sorry, Kathy.
Kathy did.
Sorry. Motion was made by Brian and seconded by Kathy. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Kath.
That's
Pardon
quite all
me.
right.
And motion passed unanimously. The next is an update on the 175th anniversary, just briefly. The committee is meeting, and they've come up with some suggestions, and Kathy has been very good about attending. And one of the things that they've asked for the parade for September 10th, 2016, which is the same day as Family Day, is they would like $5,000 for the parade. They also said there is a bus that they're trying to get people to come and go on the bus. There'd be a cost associated on August 24th. And they're gonna go to New York City to the Today Show and I guess wave cards and say how happy we are that we're 175 years old. If you'd like to go, Brian. They're looking into souvenirs and how they would commemorate $175. And they have many, many items in development. Such ideas as other groups may want to do to have some fun. Some things that have been mentioned is a pie eating contest, a block party, 50s dance, a movie festival, hay rides, bike races for children, chalk art, public art project, a flower show, and a business showcase. I know one of the, did you get an email from Sue Anders?
Yeah.
Sue Warnoff, yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, the three garden clubs are trying to get together and maybe come up with a float or other things that they could do to commemorate this. And the other I wanted to mention was the lantern tours that Bob McDougall and John Lashane are going to have. I think they already have 4 dates for those. That'll be walking tours in the downtown area. I think it's a 2.5-mile tour. But they'll stop at different buildings and tell the history of the buildings, maybe a little through the cemeteries, I'm not sure, they're working on that. So, it should be pretty interesting. There's a lot of people that are really excited. But the money that they want is mainly to get, participation in the parade. You know, a lot of people that they'd like to have come, there is a charge for that, just like we give to the Memorial Day parade. It's similar. But this, they want it separate. I mean, the Memorial Day people specified that they want this to be a separate parade. And that will be, September 10th is what they're looking at for the parade.
Is that bus cost part of the 5,000?
No, the bus took, that would be, the people would pay for that. That was specified.
Thank you, I feel a lot better now.
No, that would be.
That would've been a
People
tough
would pay
one.
on their
Just-
own for that.
it's on your own.
It would've been a
You
tough
would
one to
pay.
convince the
No, no.
taxpayers that we just.
No.
Thank you, you helped me a lot.
What does the parade cost us now, the regular parade every year?
5,000.
We're 5,000?
Yes, that's what we have set aside
Okay.
every year.
Memorial.
This,
Yeah.
and this, of course, would be a one-time,
Yeah, no, just wondering if we're
yeah.
apples to apples.
Yes.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty neat.
We can talk
Can we
about.
ride in Ben's cars in the parade?
Yeah. We'll have to.
Oh,
Cut down on cost.
Any further questions on this? Do you want to approve the $5,000 at this
I would
point?
like to make a motion that we approve $5,000 for the.
From contingency?
Yes, for the
second.
75th anniversary.
Second by Mike? Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Good time for all.
It should be very good. Yeah, the committee is doing very well, very well. And I'll also point out in May 14, is it Kathy? There's a festival at the riverfront, and that will also be the day to commemorate 175 years, but also the ribbon cutting for the new stage cover and bathrooms and the riverfront park. So please remember to put that on your calendar. The next item is affirmative action policy statement. This is something that we revisit every so often, and I would like a motion to approve.
Make
So
a
we'll
motion.
waive the reading.
Moved by Brian, seconded by Carl. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The affirmative action policy statement, which is another statement that we periodically review and endorse. Brian,
So moved, waive the reading.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Carl as well. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Refund of excess payments. Brian?
$2,327.55 to Penny D. and Ronald J. Jason Jr.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
$56.99 to Richard J. Murray Jr.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
$170.11 to Chase Auto Finance Corporation.
Second.
Seconded by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
$2,095.45 to Elizabeth, Leslie, and Joseph P. Lawler.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Any status and committee reports tonight? I have nothing. Public comment? Informal discussion? I have nothing to add under follow-up at this point, but I would ask for a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of land acquisition.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
And it is 8:50. And we'll take a brief recess.